Hey, welcome back. I got a couple knives here and doing one of my favorite video themes again, the absurd knife comparisons. I have the Kershaw Highball and the Microtech Anax. So although they are not exactly the same, or really even remotely the same in terms of cost, exact design, and so on, there is one big similarity, which is the way that you deploy the knife is a fuller deployment only. And so, oh, you know what? Plus the pivot collars. I almost forgot. So yeah, you can see the difference. They're a huge difference in size, huge difference in price. I think I got this on sale for $30. These go for $450. This is a full integral one-piece frame. This is it kind of has a little bit of this similar feel to it because it has a back spacer and like a you know, sort of, I guess, enclosed back spacer on the back or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, they both have these kind of blue titanium pivot collar looks. I think this is all steel, this is titanium. But you can see the similarities on the blade shape here for sure, and the fuller. And they're both frame locks. So there actually are quite a few similarities, which is why I chose these two for this video. It's kind of funny, but yeah, they're there. So, you know, a big part of it is that the deployment is really similar on the two, albeit on a very different scale and at a very different level of fit and finish for sure. The Highball's not bad, but it's not exactly a Dropshot. I don't know if you used it a lot. Let's see if this thing's, it's actually not even got like fully perfect lockup, to be honest. If you used it a lot, it might get there where it became Dropshot. I'm not sure. Feels like it does not have a detent ball ramp on it. It's a pretty abrupt feeling when you get back on the detent ball. Does it have one in there? Let's see if we can tell. Let's put a flashlight on it real quick. Yeah, no detent ball ramp, which is not surprising at this price point. And yeah, it's not super drop shutty coming back in. Boop. But it does have that like very similar sort of pop out feel that the Anax has. And it's actually quite a good detent on it. And it's a nice knife, one that I ranked one of my top budget knives for 2022. I think it's actually been around longer. I think it's been around since 2020 or 2021 or something like that. But that would be the, you know, a big differentiator on the Anax is the action is pretty phenomenal, especially if you keep your finger off of the lock bar when you're going in both directions. So pretty drop shot on this. And this is brand new out of box. It's really barely been used. Now this one does have a front flipper that I'm pretty bad at. I can get it maybe one in every like 4 or 5 times or something like that. So that would definitely be a difference here. But man, that thing is rough on the finger and I kind of avoid it if I can. Don't think this one has any sort of front flipper option. No. So yeah, you can really see, you know, the one of the other cool things about the Anax is the hardware. The pivot hardware is all proprietary and very cool looking, no hexes, and very minimal. You only have, you know, basically the pivot and one screw on this side for the, I think it's for the lock bar, and then a couple on the other side. So everything's very flush, and it's actually quite similar on the Kershaw Highball. They have fairly minimal hardware that you see throughout it, and although it is a hex, you know, on this side you don't have to have like a countersink hex or anything, so it's looks like it's quite serviceable. I've never had to, I barely use this, so never had to open it up or anything like that, but it kind of was my budget gentleman's knife for last year, was my assessment of it. The sound and drop shuttiness on the Anax is definitely more satisfying, and how it sits into that integral frame is just super cool. How it's all knocked down across the top of the blade, really nice. This one's a little sharp as you come into here. Everything's just a little sharp feeling. when you're messing with it. You can get it down though without having to, you know, two-hand it. You can shake it down into place. So it's pretty good in that sense, and it is dead center, I believe. Yeah, nicely centered. So cool knife. I don't know if you can really get this out, maybe with the fingernail. Oh, I don't think it's in play for me, at least. Someone better at manipulating knives might know how to do that, but maybe if I don't know if I can get the momentum though. It's just hard. It's a kind of a small knife, so you have to like grab it in just the right place to try and manipulate it like that. You can just barely do it. Again, someone that uses this knife all the time might know how to use the thumb for it, but for me, the reverse flick is generally what I do, and that's what I find with the Anax as well, is I'm generally having to, I can thumb deploy it like that, you know, again, not as consistent, and you end up getting fingernail and skin particles on it and stuff when you do, unfortunately. But generally you're gonna, you know, and I just hit myself on lock bar pressure there, so that was not the knife, that was the user. Generally you're gonna be reverse flicking this guy and enjoying it while you do. So it's a really nice knife. It is made in China, which, you know, it's a US brand, makes in China, so not everyone loves that. And same thing with the Kershaw. That kind of makes them more similar and better for this comparison. So let's get into it. First thing I always go into is feel in hand. For its size, the Kershaw is actually quite good. It grabs well. It's a very, you know, neutral and flat handle, so it gives you what you need to get into it and grab it well and do what you got to do with the knife. You can choke up on it, do some draw cuts and stuff. It's actually quite good in hand for the size, but it does feel small in the hand. The Anax, more generous in the hand, of course. Got a little finger choil you can get up into if you need to. Draw cuts are okay. It's a bit of a tall blade, so that is not quite as, I'd say, prescriptive for that, or maybe designed for that. Interesting jimping. You have very wide, thick jimping here when you're behind it, and you have very thin, kind of fine jimping on the top when you're doing maybe a more fine thing. I wish this was a little grippier on the top here, but it is nice that it's there, and it kind of goes from a design perspective. I understand why they sort of did it the way they did. So feel in hand, I'd say in its class, the Highball is really good, but versus the Anax, you kind of have to give it to the Anax just because you get a full 4 fingers on this, but it kind of disappears in your hand a little. It is pretty darn good though. It's actually closer than you would think in terms of that is a pretty darn good knife in hand. Like there's no hot spots. It is just really quite good. I might even give it the nod, honestly. I'm pretty torn. Maybe we'll give it a draw. I think they're a draw, honestly. Funny to say, didn't expect that, but it's kind of how it is. Blade steel, just go right into it. M390, so the Anax just wins out real well on that. But it is D2 on this guy, so for its price range, they both have good blade steel for their price range, is what I would say. Anax, you know, the only thing you could really do better would be maybe go Magna Cut or something, but M390, no one's mad about that, especially from Reich. They do a great job on their stuff, so, you know, that's a well done heat treat and everything. So definitely a nod to the Microtech, but within class, they're, you know, I'd say they're both good. D2 is generally the top of the super budget class. You're not going to see much better than that. Maybe here and there. Let's see, what else? Blade shape, I give the nod to the Anax. I think it's a really cool blade shape. I'm just gonna, the Kershaw is just a little pokey and pointy and small, where it probably does its job fine, but it feels like a little undergunned, whereas the Anax, you're just never gonna want for anything. This blade shape's really nice and elegant, and it's kind of a sort of in between a drop point and like a clip point and a spear point, like all in one in a way. So it kind of checks a lot of boxes for me on the blade shape. I really like the blade shape on the Anax, especially without the thumb studs and stuff. Just very slicey and great. From a pocket perspective, it's you got to give the easy nod to the Kershaw. It's just small and light and just hard to beat something like this. The pocket clip is actually a little hard to get over the pants. It's pretty freaking strong for its size, so you might want to bend it out or something like that. But generally, love the pocket clip shape, and the pocket clip on the Anax is terrible. It's this weird ball thing, and I wouldn't be comfortable bending it out, but it's like you'd need to do it to really use it. So yeah, from a carry perspective, the nod goes to the Kershaw without question, just on weight and pocket clip and everything. Pretty darn good. You could see them doing a much worse pocket clip than that at this price range. Again, it's probably more like a $50 or $60 knife, maybe even 70. That was discounted to 30 bucks, but you can get them on sale here and there. So keep an eye open if you're looking out for these. What's next? Blade shape, blade steel, handle, feel in hand. We went through pocket, feel, fit and finish, easy to the Microtech. It's one of the best finished knives that I've had hands on. It's not perfect, like the carbon fiber is a little funky, but it's all fairly flush and everything, and just the overall fit and finish of this knife is just, there's nothing overlooked, I feel like. The Highball is a little rattly. It's not cheap feeling, it's definitely a nice feeling, but it doesn't feel like it's a $100 plus knife. It feels like it's maybe like a $90 knife or an $80 or $90 knife. It does punch above its weight for what it is. Like, nice grind on it. The jimping's there. The handle's quite nice in hand. Like, it's actually quite nice for what it is, with the finishings around the pivot. Like, there are knives that cost $200 that don't have as nice of finishings as this, frankly. In fact, I'd kind of put it in the $150 range in terms of finishings, maybe even $125 to $150. So it's definitely punching above its weight, but Anax is on another level, of course. Being a $450 knife, that's honestly, if it was made in the US, it would be like $1,000 plus to be an integral and stuff. This is, finish first kind of knife, which is cool. The last part would just be the lock. And I'd say they're a draw. The lock bar is really easy to actuate on both knives, works really well on both knives. I might give like the nod slightly to the Highball on deployment, because percentage-wise, you have a higher percentage of handle to lock bar, whereas the Microtech's a little heavy on the percentage of lock bar to handle. So on the deployment, I'd probably give it to the, I'd give actually the deployment to the Highball, and then the lock on the, when you're putting it away in the drop shottiness, that is Anax all the way. This thing is just super easy to get to. You can see it's cut back, has some really nice jimping, but it's not sharp. A little bit sharp, but nothing bad. Falls down just perfectly. I mean, that is, as titanium frame locks go, one of the better ones out there. And I don't know if this guy has does it have a lock? I don't know if it does. Yeah. So overall, I'd say, does that have a lock bar insert? I'm trying to see. I think this is built in. I don't think it has a lock bar insert. So yeah, this one has the lock bar insert and everything, making it definitely a step up there. Very nice. I think that's it. Nod to the Anax. If you watch most of my absurd knife comparisons, I'm actually comparing really cheap knives to really expensive knives. Knives that are oftentimes 5 to 10 to 20 times more expensive. But the fact that, these end up most of the time coming in like 60 to 70%, maybe even 80% in some cases of the more expensive knife, is a big part of why I do this video series, because it's actually quite comical to me how good some of these budget knives are and how well they compete with some of the most expensive knives that are out there, like the Oz Roosevelt, like the Duckling and the Brown FSD, and all these knives that are $1,000 plus, at least on the secondary market. So fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.